Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room with myself, Louis Fell, joined today by Dan, Anthony, and Tino for the match preview. Finally, the Premier League is back. It's not too long ago that it was the summer, and we were saying the same kind of thing. But now it's been an international break and a monarchy's death since we last played in the Premier League, and we're finally back. Liverpool versus Brighton. So let's get into a little preview, discuss the team news, press conference news, and some interesting stuff on João Gomez, the flamenco midfielder that we've been linked with. Just some interesting new information about that as well. But first of all, Dan, how are you doing this evening?
Hello. How's it going? I'm happy to be back. Happy to be after a while in the stream with Anthony and Louis, and I think for the first time with Tino in a while too. I haven't seen him in a while, so it's gonna be a fun one. It's always a fun one when we have you guys on. So how's it going?
Yeah, all good. Thank you very much. And Anthony, how are you this evening?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Louis, for asking. It's always good when football's back. Been quite some time, 2 or 3 weeks now. Back tomorrow. Hopefully, we can get a win against Brighton and lighten the mood up even more.
Hello to everybody who is just joining, getting involved in the live chat. Please do keep it coming. And Tino, last but not least, how are you?
I'm good. It's been a while. Like, I didn't realize how long it was. I know before the international break, I think we was all kind of in the same boat, saying like we needed it as a club. But man, I miss football. Like, international football just sucks. So, and I'm not a huge England fan in general, as most Liverpool fans, I would say, in the same boat. But yeah, it's nice to be back. It's nice to be looking forward to Premier League football.
Absolutely. We are, of course, the 3 p.m. kickoff tomorrow, Saturday afternoon. Dan, how good is it to finally be back? It's felt longer. Obviously, it has been slightly longer due to complications here in England, but it's been a very long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, but I was discussing it the other day in one of the streams. This is probably one of the best things that has happened to us. I wish this could have happened last season. I mean, 2 seasons ago when we had that the defensive injury crisis and all those injuries at the back. But I'm glad it happened, man. I'm glad that we're getting Konate, Kelleher back, Calvin Ramsey. I'm pretty sure that Diogo Jota is now even better than he was before because he was subbed up earlier. And by the way, Miss Jen, as always, we love you. We really thank you for your support. You're the best. And yeah, what did she say? She's like, from all of the gang of the Anfield Agenda crew, thank you guys. Oh, that's awesome, guys. Thank you for supporting. But yeah, I'm happy that everybody's fit now. And yeah, what do you guys think? How are we doing?
Yeah, Anthony, I mean, this is a chance for us to kick on now slightly, isn't it? We've had that chance to repair some of the damage. We kind of ended it on a bit of a higher note with that win against Ajax, wasn't it, in the Champions League? So now's the time to get going again, get this season back on track.
Obviously, we've had a really poor start to the season. I think we're on 8 or 9 points. We're in 8th place. So Brighton aren't going to be an easy opponent, to be fair. They got a 2-2 draw against us last season. But with Potter gone, maybe they won't have that same oomph or energy. But who knows? I think we got to bring out a game. Like you said, against Ajax, I think that gave us plenty of confidence going into the next few matches with Thiago back. What a player, man. Like, ever since he came back, the whole midfield just looks incredible again now. So he's back. Artur, his agent's been saying a few things about him being fit again for this season. So that's something to look forward to as well. And I'm hoping we get a comfortable win against Brighton. But I don't think it will be an easy match.
No, there's no such thing as easy matches in the Premier League anymore, are there? Tino, what are your thoughts on this one? It's an interesting opposition to come up against immediately after an international break and with the start that we've had. We can talk more about Brighton's situation, but for us, this is massive to sort of build momentum for the next few months.
Yeah, it really is a huge game, a huge restart. If we're being honest, it could have been a worse team to face. But man, like, we really need to get off to a good start. Having having the opportunity. I think we're at home. It's a really, really big opportunity for the club, for the players who are back fit. Klopp's briefly mentioned about Ibu Konate, depending on how he trains, could be in and around the squad. It's a huge opportunity and something we really need to take by the scruff of the neck and grasp it, because, man, our season, if we're being honest, has been absolutely atrocious so far. Not good enough in the slightest. You can blame injuries and such as all you want, but for me, the players we have in the squad should be comfortably beating Palace, should be comfortably beating Fulham, who were dropped points against. So I'm looking at this game as a really big opportunity. The international break, the long break, is the one that we needed. What I saw in an article yesterday on This Is Anfield, it was something like 19 days since we last played. And Klopp expecting players to be fit by mid to end of August and have a fully fit squad. So to go into this to go into this game with a couple of players sort of coming back should give the whole team confidence. And then you've got the Brighton situation, losing the manager as well, which is it's a big loss for them. So it should be a good game. It should be a good fixture. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to come out of the game with 3 points and be looking ahead. And then it's difficult games in the Champions League after that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a little bit more on this, this big break that we're coming off the back of, Dan. I think a lot of us are, as we should be, choosing to look at it in a positive light. This is a great chance to reset, etc. But, the other side of that is that historically, I don't know if this is factually backed up or if this is just, our biases talking, but historically, it's always felt like we've done better when games are coming thick and fast. And when we have those breaks, even if it's just for like a week with no midweek game, sometimes it can feel like we struggle to get back into our groove. Now, you could argue there was no groove to get back into from before the break, but now, it's been such a long time. There's a risk of it almost being like a false start, and we've got to go again and get some momentum that may not necessarily come against Brighton tomorrow.
I completely agree. Actually, there's always risks in these type of things, and obviously, based on past things, we have dealt pretty well with consistent games, obviously. But due to the situation that we're currently on, and due to the form that our front line or the midfield players are currently on, I don't think there's any better thing at the moment than just giving the lads a rest. And even so, in the international level, most of them had plenty of game time. The likes of Mohamed Salah, Diogo Jota, Darwin Núñez, who was called, by the way, a wonderful header the other day. He also had game time. So I'm actually also excited about the likes of Arthur, who, by the way, has been training and playing with the youth side. So I think in general, this is one of the few occasions when this little break actually is going to do pretty well for us. I'm excited to see what's going to be the lineup that Klopp lines up with against Brighton, because it's going to be an interesting one. In a while, we haven't had all these players available, the likes of Henderson, which, by the way, I also forgot to mention when I was giving out the list of players that recovered. I just hope that he doesn't select Milner. I want him to get a rest. Let's say it that way, so I can put it out nicely. I don't want him to get too tired. But yeah, man, excited. Let's see what happens.
Hi, just bring up the fact that Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's house was burgled the other day. We don't share this sentiment, obviously. We hope him and his family all the best. Obviously, quite a traumatic experience, I imagine. I think his missus and his kid were in the building at the time. So, we won't make too light-hearted of a situation out of it. Darwin Newcount, You Never Walk Alone, says, is Adam Lallana going to be the player coach for Brighton? No, he isn't. And that's a perfect segue into talking about Brighton and their manager. Now, I don't know if anybody particularly knows who this guy is, Roberto De Zerbi. I certainly didn't, but done a little bit of reading up, and a bit of people like to say that what was it? Ralph Rangnick was not a disciple. What's the opposite of disciple? The person that the likes of Klopp and Tuchel looked up to, whereas Zerbi
role model
is a bit more of a role model. That's a good one. Is a bit of a disciple of the likes of Pep Guardiola and Marcelo Bielsa. Tino, I'll come to you on this one. Well, first of all, do you know much about this guy? I think he's probably quite new to a lot of us. And secondly, it's his very first game, isn't it? And that's never a good... I never like that. I never like to play a team when they've got a new manager in for their first game.
Playing a team when it's a brand new manager is it's a bit of an unknown situation, really. I knew not much, only from a few friends who I know who used to support Sassuolo. Currently support Sassuolo. That's a poor choice of words. I know bits. He's got a fairly good reputation. I know he's come out recently and said he likes to try and control the game, tries to control possession, which I think is going to be difficult to do in a game against Liverpool at Anfield. But I think the Brighton fans are quite confident with this appointment. They seem to think that he's not too dissimilar stylistically from Graham Potter, so the transition shouldn't be that too big of a move. And also, I think he's expected to stick with the back three for at least the foreseeable future, until he can really get his grasp on this team and really get them playing the way he wants to play. He's certainly a very good appointment for me. Probably not one that everybody saw coming, but when you're looking at someone stylistically and you want to, because of how good Graham Potter has done, and you want to try and emulate that with a new manager who's going to try and propel them even further, I think you couldn't go too far wrong with the appointment. And it's never, like I say, it's never a good thing. It's never a good thing playing a new manager at his new club. As I said, it's an unknown quantity, really. All the players are really playing for their place in the starting 11. It's a brand new, fresh, clean sheet for everybody. So, as much as the main guys that he's probably going to pick, McAllister, Trossard, Robert Sanchez, the main ones he's probably going to throw in there. There's still a few unknowns that he could sort of chuck straight in there if they've done well in training. So it's going to be a tough lineup to really predict, I think, from what I can see, and a very tough game for Liverpool Football Club going forward.
Yeah, I mean, De Zerbi, he's often described, especially from his time at Sassuolo, as someone who's able to create strong bonds with his players, and players often recall their readiness to fight for him. Now, I mean, this plays into Brighton's hands quite well, doesn't it? I mean, they've just lost their top-class manager who received most of the plaudits, I'd argue, in terms of their most recent success. So if you're one of these players who's just been suddenly left in the lurch by the manager, some of these players were brought in by Potter, and now he's gone. This could be a great sort of siege mentality that we see from Brighton on the road. New manager coming to Anfield. Everyone, well, we're definitely favourites. A lot of people will be thinking that we could turn up and put in a great performance. This is a great opportunity for them to kind of prove their worth to this new manager and show that they are a united team behind the new gaffer.
Exactly. I think everything you said is like what we don't want to hear. Disciple of Pep Guardiola, you said. But obviously, managers get these sort of shouts like now and then. We've heard it with Ten Hag as well. He's the next Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola, But I don't think I'd be more worried if they still had Potter as manager, but that's just because we don't know what the new one necessarily brings to Brighton. But like you're saying, he gets the players to fight for him. Brighton have enough of those sort of players anyway, I think, which helps them stay so far high up the table. I think they're top 4 this season, are they? I might be wrong, but Caicedo, Dan's boy, he's been incredible. McAllister, Trossard, all these players. They did hurt us last season. To be fair, even in the second half, I think of last season, they kept possession. We couldn't even create any chances. So they're good defensively, but I do think we can catch them out. Especially like I said, Thiago's back. So I think we're a pretty much fully fit squad. We shouldn't face too many problems against them, but new manager bounce exists. Sorry. So hopefully it doesn't exist against us today or tomorrow. Sorry, but they're tough side, man, especially with a few of their players.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. They're currently sitting in 4th place. They're 3 places higher than Chelsea, which is where their old manager's gone to, which is quite bizarre, isn't it? But Dan, Anthony raised quite an interesting point that he would rather face this current Brighton team than one under Graham Potter still. Do you share that sentiment? Is Graham Potter leaving, stacking the deck in our favour? Would you be more worried if he was still in charge?
Absolutely, 100%. We, just like Anthony has said, we've seen what Potter just did with his Brighton side. They're currently 4th place, like you're mentioning. So there's no better time for us to face them now than the fact that they just got rid of their manager. And this new guy that has come in has a pretty high reputation. So obviously, I never watch any of his games, but I do know that he's from the Shakhtar team that he comes from. He was known for winning like their cup in Ukraine, I think it is, where they're from. And from the Sassuolo years, he was like the main man, the key behind Sassuolo's quote unquote success, because they stayed up in the Serie A for so long, right? Because when you're a mid-table club, like what else can you expect, right? But we've seen the talents that he also brought up, Domenico Berardi and all these other guys, right? So he was a key behind all that, and he was always very, very highly praised for it. But that being said, you cannot compare the Ukrainian league as well and the Italian league as to the Premier League. This is a totally different ballgame, especially when you're taking over a mid-table side like Brighton, which, by the way, currently are in 4th place. Yeah, we know. But it's going to be a struggling first few games, regardless of the form that they're currently on, right? So I think it's the best time to face them. I think is going to be also in favor of the fact that we have so many players coming back from injury. So if there's a moment to face them, it's right now. 3-0 victory.
Can I jump in slightly?
I like it. Yeah, absolutely.
Can I jump in slightly? I kind of disagree to a certain extent with there's no perfect like this is the best time to face them because of the new manager and such. With this new guy coming in, there was a lot of unknowns, because as much as he's being compared stylistically quite similar to the way Graham Potter like to play, it's still the Premier League. It's still a big step up. Dan mentioned it himself. The Ukrainian league and Serie A is the difference between those two leagues, and then the difference between those two leagues and the Premier League is so vast. The Premier League is one of the biggest leagues in the world, if not the biggest. It's such a physical league in comparison. I think he could be in for a shock. And I would much rather play a existing manager in Graham Potter, where you kind of know what you're getting. He's been at Brighton a couple of years now. You know, stylistically, generally speaking, how they're going to set up. You could look at the past games between Liverpool and Brighton under him and think, this is how they set up then. So in theory, they're going to try and do something similar, whether it's sit deep and counter or however he plays. I would much rather play up against something that is a known quantity than this new manager, the guys coming in, the guy who everybody seems to play for and to bleed for. Really, it seems from the conversations I've had and from what I've read, it's just, yeah, I would much rather personally play Potter than De Zerbi, the new guy, personally. But that's just me.
No, I think that's a really interesting point. The fact that obviously, yeah, we know what we're getting with Potter. So at least if they get a result, you can't turn around and say, well, we just didn't really know what he was going to do. Like we've seen him operating in the Premier League. Yeah, Anissa makes a good point. Thank you to everybody who's getting involved, by the way. Please do get involved in the live chat if you haven't done so, and please do like and subscribe. But Anissa made a great point that Brighton won't just become rubbish overnight because Potter's gone. But that's kind of the point everyone's forgetting. You know, when there's a new manager, we assume that they were doing badly, but this is just because Potter got an offer from a bigger team, more money, etc. They're in fourth place, as you pointed out, Anthony. So, you know, this really is. We can't underestimate just how tough of a game this is going to be. This is good players playing well and wanting to prove themselves for a new to a new manager. There's nothing holding them back from getting a result tomorrow.
Of course, I think even like in their previous meetups with us, it's always been sort of tight matches. I think when we finished on 97 points at those sort of seasons, it was always like 1-0 wins. And then the past couple of seasons, we've drawn against them a couple of times. I can't remember what the result was when we played them away from home last season, but we know we're facing a tough side and they're very, very good from counter-attacks, I think. So and that's sort of our weakness at the moment. I think we're playing too much of a high line. Obviously, it's benefited us, but to an extent, it doesn't work when your full team isn't there. Obviously, we've got a few players back now, so it could work against Brighton, but we struggled against them last season. Trossard got through a few times, and they've added more quality to that team with Caicedo. Even March could get in behind as well, and Welbeck's been quite good this season. To be fair, don't think he scored that many, but his hold-up play has been incredible, and we're gonna. I don't know. I think we'll still have an edge on them just because we've got so many players back, and Anfield first game back in a while, and like you're pointing out, we tend to perform well when there's like heavy set of fixtures. And Firmino, I just saw Haler's predicted 11. Obviously with Jota and Nunes out, Firmino's going to start. He's not been great this season, but I've been hoping he could turn it around. And same with a lot of the players. But Thiago just gives me a lot of confidence that we can get 3 points.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair enough. I mean, let's turn our attention a little bit more towards Liverpool. This is, of course, the LFC transfer room. The previous tie, as you were alluding to, Liverpool at home, it finished 2-2. Of course, we raced into a 2-0 lead in the first 25 minutes, and then around the mid-stage of the game, conceded 4 minutes before the end of the first half, and then conceded about 20 minutes into the second, which led to a 2-2 draw. And that was kind of, I can't remember if that was the beginning of a slightly disappointing spell, which looking back on last season was probably our undoing in terms of the league, which still sounds mental considering how many points we ended up accumulating. Dan, the big part about that game was, and what a lot of people point to as letting us down, was the midfield. If I just find it here, it was Jordan Henderson, Curtis Jones, and Naby Keita. Now, 2 of those are very, very unlikely to start. Keita definitely won't. Curtis Jones, I mean, it just hasn't really existed so far this season. But how big is that midfield battle going to be? And as Anthony said, how big a part does Thiago have to play in all this?
Huge. I also back Anthony in this point. Thiago is probably somehow the key to Liverpool's success, I think, in this moment in time. I'm actually surprised that I say this, because when he came in, Liverpool were pretty much already stabled in the whole starting 11, and I wasn't expecting Thiago to have such an impact in the team. But nowadays, if you take Thiago out, that's it. Liverpool done. So the fact that Thiago has finally come back and has added more brightness to the team, it's a huge spark, and it's a very risky thing because we're basically betting the whole game on this player. So if Thiago has a good game, we're going to have a good game. If Thiago has a bad game, we're in for some deep trouble right here, unless Luis Diaz comes with some magical, wonderful performance. I don't think we can really rely on Mo or rely on Darwin Nunez at the moment. Same with Jota. I think we're actually just asking too much from him at the moment because he just came back from injury a few weeks back. But yeah, I mean, there is everything surrounding Thiago. We cannot expect much from Henderson. We cannot expect much from Fabinho, who, by the way, not only he hasn't gotten as much game time with Brazil and international break, but has also been doing pretty roughly with us in the last few match days. So, man, I mean, I'm in the same boat right now. I want to see what craziness Thiago comes in with, and hopefully our front line are able to explode these opportunities. But by the way, let me take the banner at the bottom out. But this is the best time in a while that we're gonna have all these matches. Man United, Man City, all battling for top four. Well, Man City already in first place. Brighton, Liverpool, obviously fourth place, eighth place. There's only a difference of 4 points. Same with Fulham, Newcastle, who happen to have to be above us. All these matches are going to be crucial, and of course the London Derby as well. So if everybody needs something to do, the weekend is definitely something to keep an eye on as far as football matches come.
Absolutely. Just directly from that fixture again last season, we started off well. Well, I'm testing your memory here, Tino, but we started off very well. And just going over the stats, I mean, we had 14 shots compared to Brighton's 9. 3 of ours were on target, and 6 of theirs were on target. So, if there's one thing to improve on, and the midfield is obviously going to be different from last year's game. Fabinho will be there, Thiago should be there, and then anybody from Henderson to Elliott, probably not Carvalho, but chance creation didn't seem to be our problem. Maybe it is now, but certainly converting those chances as well. Firmino, if he's picked, needs to turn up. Darwin Núñez, could this be another chance for him to kickstart his Liverpool career again?
I'm gonna be honest. My memory from that match is shot. It's shocking. I can't remember what I had for tea tonight, let alone last season. That being said, looking ahead to this game, I am concerned with regards to our midfield. As much as we've talked about the break we've had and that we've needed it, the 18 days, 19 days since we last played, the 28 days since we last played a Premier League fixture, we look tired. We look tired prior to the international break. Even with or without injuries, we looked shattered. Fabinho looks absolutely haggard and seems to be doing the entire running for the entire midfield. So as much as we've had a break, that is a concern going into this match for me. I think provided Fabinho, Thiago, and for me, Harvey Elliott player, I think that midfield should be good enough to dominate and should be good enough to at least control the game, which is what we need. Bringing in someone like Milner, who's 400 years old, isn't going to help. He's not in the squad for me, Milner, to be playing week in, week out. He's in there to be playing in the cup games and to bring off Thiago for the last 15, 20 minutes when we're comfortable to help him because of his injuries and fitness issues. Jordan Henderson's just come back from injury, having made a 5-minute cameo for England. Again, he's been on the downtrend since forever, for as long as I can remember. I would absolutely love us to go into a game and actually for once start well. That would be nice. That would be really. This is coming onto a slightly rant-esque point, but it would be nice to go into a game and actually start well. And looking back to the fixture last season, we did exactly that with a midfield that for me wasn't good enough last year. Naby Keita should be nowhere near this squad. Obviously, he's currently sort of injured, sort of not injured, sort of faking it. Like Henderson for me is on his way out. We certainly, it goes back to the point we've discussed all summer about needing upgrades and needing to bring in extra players. And next summer's going to be such a huge year for us. And this is a transition year. And you sat there like this Brighton game after such a long period of rest for the vast majority of the squad, even with international football. if we don't get the result we need, if we don't come out and dominate and control and get the performance and victory that we need, there's really no like, you can't just sit there and say, oh well, it's a transition year. Like, we've had a break, we've had a rest. We need to actually start performing. And it's so frustrating to go into a game and be nervous, which is for, as a Liverpool fan, and prior to Klopp, fair enough. But since Klopp's come in, I've never gone into a game and thought, if we don't turn up, we could draw or lose this game against a team like Brighton. And no disrespect to Brighton in the slightest. I've never gone into a game against a mid to lower team Premier League side and gone, yeah, this is going to be a tough game. But it is, because we haven't been good enough. And this is such a huge fixture, and one we really need to take by the scruff of the neck and just dominate from start to finish, because we can't risk a repeat of last year's game.
Absolutely. I mean, Tino, you said a lot, and I don't want you to think this is the only thing I took from it, but I do want to talk about James Milner very quickly, because we must never underestimate Jurgen Klopp's adoration for that man. We talked about this. Well, I've talked about this on watch-alongs and what have you, but I can't remember which game it was. I think it might have been the Everton game, where there was a period in that game where James Milner tried to track back, tried to make 2 sliding challenges, and basically missed both of them. And I just said, you know what? I love the guy, but it's just embarrassing to watch. Like, I'm embarrassed for him. I feel bad for him. And, you know, any normal person, anyone who doesn't have an adoration for Milner, would say that's his age starting to show. He's an athletic monster, but at some point you do become too old. You do lose that half a yard. That means you can't compete on an elite level. And I feel like he's crossed that threshold, and I'm sure most of you will agree as well. But Jurgen Klopp came out in an interview either for that game or for another game afterwards and said, you know, when James Milner isn't able to make challenges, you know there's a problem, kind of suggesting that, no, he still can, but, you know, everybody's playing badly. There's a problem with the team. So I took that to mean, Dan, that Jurgen Klopp has got no intention of pushing James Milner more towards the back room. He's got no intention of, you know, fast-tracking Fabio Carvalho or fast-tracking Harvey Elliott into the side. If James Milner is available and match fit, and there's not somebody 10 times better than him waiting, James Milner is going to be in with a chance of starting. And I don't think that's what any of us wanted going into this season.
You said it yourself, my friend. I mean, that's the case. And obviously everybody is against this whole theory regarding playing Milner. Because I actually believe that he's still up standard in the Premier League. I mean, every time I see him, he runs around the pitch everywhere, full of energy, making those strong tackles, whether you get it or not. I feel like he's still up to standard, but I think that he just doesn't add anything to the current side that we have. So, one thing I actually don't agree with Klopp is the fact that he's playing him so often, because I don't see Milner as an aging player. I just see Milner as a average player. So, for example, I wouldn't be happy with the club bringing in what's it called, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, not because he's not reliable fitness wise, or not because he of his age or anything. It's just because I don't think he's adding anything at the moment. And I think I do regard James Milner in the same boat as Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain at the moment. If he doesn't play for Liverpool, he'll go somewhere else and he play 2-3 more years, believe it or not, because of his physical conditions. But he's just not adding anything, and I think that club just regards highly the level of energy that you put into training, the level of the hierarchy that you have in the team as well, because the leadership that you bring in, and this is something that we were discussing a few streams before. Club doesn't really choose the starting 11 based on ability or based on how good a player is. He bases his starting 11 based on who does better in training and based on who just shows that wants to give more to the team. That's why we saw Lallana a lot. even though a lot of us didn't want him to start so many games, and that's what's happening with James Milner now.
I mean, somewhere else where there's, we can have guesses about who's going to be playing, who we think should be playing is up front. Obviously, Firmino and Nunes occupying that number 9 position. Diogo Jota as well, of course. Although I don't know how quickly he'll be rushed in. I can't imagine Jota starting tomorrow. I'll put it that way. Maybe I'm wrong. Anthony, for you and why, who starts up front for Liverpool, Firmino or Nunes?
I think it's going to be Firmino, but I would prefer Nunes, but he's not trained and neither has Jota. So I don't even think Jota was injured, was he? He just said he needed a bit of a rest from fatigue to the Portugal manager. But Firmino's the only one that's trained, so realistically, he's the only one that's going to start. But I wouldn't have any complaints if either 3 of them start, to be honest. They all got quality. And we've seen it with Jota against Ajax. He was brilliant. And with Nunes, obviously he's not at the best of starts, but he's had far from the worst. Like, everyone's saying he's rubbish, he's a flop already. He's not even completed the full 90 minutes yet for us. So I think very quick to rule him out. But he's definitely got quality there. We saw it he scored a goal for Uruguay, not against them. But with the midfielders, I do want to touch on, I was called an idiot in the comment section for saying how signing Milner to a new contract was a bad idea because he brings leadership and everything. But you do need leadership, but you don't need it like to the point of where Klopp starts him every week. It's good to have in the dressing room. But the thing is, we sort of pretend like half these players aren't leaders anyway. Like Van Dijk's one. I'm sure Alisson is. Firmino, Thiago. Thiago's probably the best leader there because he sort of shows it by example. As much as I like Henderson as a captain, I think Thiago's just a better leader. And like I said, he shows it by example. And same with the midfield. Just a little fun fact, by the way. I always have to give Cater some props on the stream. The last match we played against Brighton, we were 1-0 up when he was on the pitch. Klopp took him off, and then we drew 2-2. So just a little interesting fact for everyone. But yeah, so like Dan just pointed out, basically, it's not like Milner's old or he's not adding. He's just not adding anything. And when you're getting those players where they're just average, same with Chamberlain. I do like Chamberlain once he gets a run of games, but he's never going to get a run of games, especially with the quality of this midfield. Looking to improve, especially next season as well. And with his contract running out, you just have to sign more players and improve on that midfield. And those sort of players past it, but up front, like you're saying, by the way, I do think Firmino's going to start just solely because the other two haven't trained.
Just before we get on to the sort of score predictions, the fun bit, Tino, I don't know if you've seen it, but Harvey Elliott was awarded our August and September, because we haven't played really, Player of the Month. Now, there's a bit of an interesting narrative going around Harvey Elliott at the minute, which is that, yes, he has been playing well. Yes, he has been one of our best players. But that's unfortunately come at the detriment to the team overall. Not that he drags us down, but that I guess he doesn't fulfill all the roles that the right side late should do. Some people say that he doesn't cover Trent as well as others, although I'd argue that Henderson hasn't really been doing that for a year or two. It's been a while since I've seen Henderson defend brilliantly, covering Trent's right side. I don't know. But do you know much of that narrative? Do you appreciate it? Do you agree with it? Or do you think that it's all nonsense and that, Elliott is playing well and he's just being let down by other people?
Man, can we not just for once, like, say to a guy, you've done well? Like, do we have to criticize every minute aspect of every single player and every single thing a player does and how he breathes and how he walks? Like, bro, like, I think what people don't realize and what people tend to forget is, and quite similar to Trent as well, is they are so young. They are still ridiculously young and ridiculously early on in their careers as a whole, let alone at Liverpool Football Club. And man, Harvey Elliott has performed phenomenally well since the start of the season. And for me, bar Diaz, maybe has been our best player. And yes, fair enough. If you want to complain about the defensive aspect, but it's not just Elliott. It's not just, you can't blame our defensive frailties and all the issues we've had purely because Henderson's not playing and Elliott is. Because when Henderson's playing, everybody's complaining that he's crap and he only passes sideways and he doesn't defend. Like, you can't have it both ways. Like, I think Harvey Elliott has performed fantastically. He has deservedly won those awards for me. The only person who comes close in terms of performance-wise is Diaz. But you can't just criticize and keep criticizing a guy. Like can you not just accept it and acknowledge how good he's played? Because he has been defensively quite strong. He has been defensively really, really strong, and he is still very young. He's still going to make mistakes in games, and people really, really do just tend to disregard that. I do notice what Drew said about Alisson. That's a fair point. Alisson has been phenomenal, but I mean, I kind of expect Alisson to be phenomenal. I think he's just one of those players that when he doesn't perform well, you drastically notice it. Whereas he's just one of those guys that he's guaranteed to pretty much be up there in terms of Golden Glove this season, guaranteed. And yeah, I think Alisson certainly is underappreciated, I think, in this Liverpool side at times when we talk about our best players. But yeah, it's just, man, can we just, for once, just accept that a guy's played well and not criticize every minute aspect of his game?
I agree with you completely on that one. Just let the boy live. I mean, no, I mean, I suppose it just depends on the way you go about it. I think, there's a conversation to be had about his defensive attributes, etc., etc. I mean, just a quick look on FB Ref, and I know this isn't the Bible on what's good in football, but from the last 365 days, I'm looking at both Elliott and Henderson's defensive actions per 90. Now, remember, Harvey Elliott will have a much smaller sample size, so therefore Henderson should be displaying greater consistency and greater numbers, but it's not great reading, particularly for either of them. Elliott maybe just edging it, but it's only when Henderson's not in the team that everyone starts to suddenly have this appreciation for him. It's very strange. In the past, it made sense because he did have that ability and he was genuinely a massive part of this team in terms of that leadership, in terms of that athleticism. But it's starting to desert him a bit, Henderson at least. So, no, it's interesting. But let's get on to the not the player scores. We haven't played yet. The score predictions. So Liverpool versus Brighton. Get them down in the live chat. What do you think? How is this game going to go? The same fixture last year finished 2-2. Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be a win? Is it going to be a loss? Dan, give us your thoughts.
Comfortable win, my friend. Comfortable win. I feel like we're going to be looking at a 3-1 victory, or maybe like a 2-1 victory or 2-0. Like I was explaining before, there shouldn't be any reason why not. All these players are back. Brighton are with a new manager. They're barely starting to get used to his new tactics. I mean, the guy doesn't even know who's the best player there yet. I mean, he's testing things out here and there. He's going to need at least one more month until he's finally settled in that team. So not only that, but the players themselves, after coming back from international break, they have to have this different mentality. They're gonna have this mentality of, I want to start again. I want to be on fire. We need to go all out at it. So I feel like we're finally going to see the Liverpool that we were expecting to see. So Brighton's match, 3-1 victory. The one goal conceded is only because we always concede some sort of goals here and there. So yeah, 3-1 for me.
Yep, Drew's agreed. Drew and Matthias have both agreed with you. 3-1 to Liverpool. Ernie Copper's gone for a 2-0. Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Hat-trick car, I agree, 3-1 as well for Liverpool. But with Brighton, I don't want to sound disrespectful. I don't think many of their players probably had an international break just because they've either not been selected or whatever. So I think it probably suits us better knowing our players are more match fit than theirs. I'm not saying that they're not match fit or whatever, but having a 3-week break obviously will have a bad negative effect on them. So I think it should be a comfortable win, and we'll probably concede like a late goal or something.
And Tino, what have you gone for?
I would. I'm not going to agree 3-1. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to go against the grain slightly. I do still think it'll be a Liverpool win, but I'm going to go 1-0. I would love to see Darwin Núñez start and play, because I think when you pay that much money for a striker, you can't just keep chopping and changing him every game. He plays one game, then doesn't, then plays the next, then doesn't. He needs consistency. So I would love to see him start and get the winning goal at 1-0 for me.
Hyla says Brighton have 4 points out of 6 against Liverpool in their last 2 matches away. Touchwood. And Matthias says, I'm going to say Salah and Núñez, then they'll make it nervous. And Salah again puts it to bed. So yeah, 3-1 on that one. Oluwa's gone for a 2-2 draw as well. Well, we shall see. It's less than 24 hours to go. I don't know the exact maths. Bit too on the spot for me. But Dan, Anthony, Tino, thank you very much for joining me for this match preview. Finally, tomorrow the Premier League returns. There is a 12:30 game, but we will be on at 3 p.m. We'll have a live watch along from 2:30, so make sure you join us for all the build-up and full match commentary. And of course, post-match reaction after that. Please do like the video if you haven't done so already. And if you are new, please subscribe. We go live every night at 7:30. Got all of your Liverpool news covered and in one spot. Again, everybody on the stream, everybody watching, thank you very much. And we will see you in the next stream. Take care.